There are 5 moments in my career where everything suddenly clicked, where one idea or realization completely changed how I build decks forever. Today I'm sharing those breakthrough moments that make everything easier and better. These aha moments may change the way you build decks too. I went to the School of Hard Knocks. I worked for my father for a couple years when I was 19 years old. And then when I was 21, I moved back to Washington State and started my deck business. 21 years old, licensed and bought and insured, advertising in the local newspaper because there was no internet back then. So I had to learn a lot of these things the hard way by trial and error, okay? So I had a good understanding of how things worked under my belt, but then I just had to make a lot of mistakes to figure out how to make things better. I'm gonna share with you some of the things that I use still today as a professional deck builder of 35 years that have changed how I build decks and how I still use them in today's society. First things first, one of the things you need to know to build a deck is how to make it square. How to square up a deck so that it looks nice when you lay it and you cut it, that everything cuts properly. And the way we do that is something I learned really early in my career, and that's called a 3-4-5, or a technical term, and forgive me if I say this wrong, is the Pythagorean theorem. We're gonna start with inches, because that's what I'm jigged up for today. We're gonna make a triangle, right, to create something that's square. I know it sounds funny, but that's just the way I was taught and how I've learned it. Okay, here's a square. Okay, you can use this to square up a deck too. Put this piece on the house and use a really straight board over here, and then you can bring your board into square. Let's say you do have a straight board, but you don't have this, or this one's in millimeters, so it's basically worthless anyways. All right, guys, so here's the theory. Let's say this side's your house, and here's your deck. And you can do this in inches, you can do this in feet, you can do it in multiples of 3, 4, 5. So I measured 3 inches this way, I'm gonna measure 4 inches this way, and from edge to edge, if this cut is square, this should be 5 inches. Now you can translate that into feet, all right? But it always works, it always is square. So if you double the components from 3, 4, 5, you can go to 6, 8, 10. You can go to 9, 12, 15 if you need to. I don't think I've really gone much more than 6, 8, and 10 feet, but let's just do it on a miniature scale. Okay, so here's 6, here's 8. Now this should be 10 inches. Pow! All right, that tracks, right? So I can take my millimeter easy read square, and just for giggles, I'm gonna put it up against the house, and then I'm gonna move it over. Hey, that looks pretty good. That's pretty square, that's a pretty square cut. Okay, when you're scaling this larger, guys, and you're going like in feet, that 3, 4, 5 works really good, or a 6, 8, 10. Usually a 6, 8, 10, you need somebody else to help you hold the tape measure. On a 3, 4, 5, I can usually do that myself, but you're kind of inching the tape out and it might be a little loose. I just call somebody over and say, hey, can you hold me at this mark? And then I'll check it. And if I'm off, then I'll bring that joist over to make it the 3, 4, 5 or the 6, 8, 10. All right, so that is just something that I use still to this day. We have some really cool fold-out squares and things like that as well, but that's just a key identifier on when we're building a square deck. If we need to square up an edge, that's how we do it. You can use string, you can use material board. String's really straight. I use aluminum, right? I actually have a master set of 2-inch by 6-inch aluminum planks. I have a 14, I have a 20 and a 24 foot if I really needed it, and I'll bring those to work and I'll use those as my straight edges to create those square areas so I know where to do my footing layouts and things like that. So another thing I use a lot when I'm creating curved decks is maybe the Pythagorean theorem is not going to work out for us, but I need to figure out how to create a curve. So I start figuring out curves on my computer at home so I have an idea of what's this radius going to be. Okay, well, on this particular design, let's say we have a, whatever this level happens to be. Okay, I need a 43¼ inch radius. So you can use any material, any piece of wood, a level, whatever you got to create a compass. So when I started doing a lot of curves, I had to figure out a way to create the curve in real time. So if I have this hole right here and I mount this, I have to have a pivot point on the deck somewhere to create this curve. Once I figure out where my pivot point is, then I can trace the outside of this identifier, this compass, any way I want, right? So once this is pinned to the deck, I can just pivot this around into that curved shape. And it gives me an accurate enough reading so that I can identify the marks, and then I can cut everything in, and then I have that perfect circle. That's how I get a perfect circle. Now I've also used this on a reverse curve where I create an elevated area down in maybe, let's say, a lower pit area, and I come up with something that's nice and plumb, and then I create a pivot point from there, and I can still create a reverse curve in a deck. I've done that several times as well, and it's just a beautiful look. It looks great. As long as you know the original radius or circumference of the deck. Usually I work in radiuses because I'm taking the half point of a circle. The circumference is the total distance across the circle, but the radius is half of that. So I work in the radius department quite a bit when I'm doing what I do. So using a straight edge and different depths, whenever we bend deck boards, we do the same thing. We use a lot of compasses to create those circles and those curved boards. So another technique that I've developed and used for many, many years is how many deck boards do I install at the same time? Over the last 20 years, I've been using a lot of deck board spacers to have equally spaced boards. And then we started having these clamp systems that we use to clamp things together. And we were able to use clamps and spacers to be able to lay 5 deck boards at a time. It's revolutionary because it's fast and it's accurate. It's a professional way to do things. Now lately, we've also used this thing called a deck divider. If you search our page, you'll find the deck divider on our page. Go watch that video as well. And it's a deck spacing tool that you purchase the clamps, and then it comes in a kit, and then you create these spacer clamp ends. Everything's included in the kit to create these really cool deck clamps. But before that was a thing, I used to buy these clamp ends that Irwin used to make, which they don't longer make anymore, but I was able to put those on the ends. And those are cool because you can use them not only for clamping deck boards together, but you can also clamp fascia to the end of a deck. If you're creating curves, you're able to push things in, keep them tight while you put all the screws in, then it doesn't pop back out. So definitely clamping and spacers have revolutionized how we lay a deck board. I used to just lay one deck board at a time, and my spacing tool was one of these metric squares that I don't use for anything else. This one's pretty thin, but I used to have an 1/8 inch thick square that I would use, and it was steel, and it was old reliable. I think I still have it somewhere in our job site trailer, but I would use old reliable, right? I would put this down and I'd somehow cinch the board, and then I would install it, and then I'd pull this out and do it again. But one deck board at a time installation is time consuming. Certain hidden fastener systems are that way as well. But I like installing 5 boards at a time. I don't install the whole deck at once. I do sections of the deck systematically until we're finished. So another thing that really clicked and resonated with me was when I started trying to finish decking. PVC deck boards, they like to move, they expand and contract. I don't do a lot of miters on PVC decking because of that fact. So I came up with a couple different ways to minimize the expansion and contraction. One of them was my creation, one of them was not. So the first one, I didn't create it. I just saw it, somebody else do it on the internet. I was like, hey, that's brilliant. I'm gonna do that, is creating a folded corner where we take a standard deck board, we cut a V in it, we heat it up, which I'm totally down with the heat gun because I know I've used those quite a bit, and then gluing it to create a folded corner that you can then put on the edge or the outside corner of a deck. So we do that on 22.5s or a 45-degree corner or a 45 with that creates a 90-degree piece. What that does is it creates a controlled expansion and contraction joint in the deck so that things can move, but the corner doesn't become messy or come apart or break in the future. So we like to do folded corners. And then also in our trim, if we're not doing a folded corner, then we do a lot of glue ups. Now this is something that I came up with. I started ripping the surface layer off of deck boards and cutting it down into 1-inch thick pieces and then gluing that right to the end of a piece of decking to create a factory looked edge. The reason I did that, because again, I don't want to do a miter. When I put put a Cortex fastener in, the screw is basically going all the way through the miter. It's not gonna really hold together. You're gonna get some pull away. So what I decided is if I butt joint, put a factory edge on it, I can pin it with 2 screws, Cortex it, and then the corner looks factory. The end grain looks factory. So it's a really cool look. I like doing it. I consider that a premium service that I do for my clients, either the folded corners or the glue ups. And I don't really have a preference one way or another. I think the most ultimate premium, I'm probably doing folded corners on everything. But if I have a nice deck that I want it to look good, and depending on the style and how I'm feeling that day or whatever, I might end up doing some glue ups instead of a folded corners. But 2 cool revolutionary things that I've done, I've adapted those into my lineup, and I'm going to continue to build that way for the foreseeable future. If you guys want to see more about gluing up those end grains, we just did a video. Check it out. Look below in the description. It'll be there for you. All right, and probably the most game-changing thing that I've ever done as a deck builder. Again, did not invent this, but I am an advocate for it, and I think I've taken the ball and I've ran with it quite hard for many, many years, is deck board bending. Now, for deck board bending, you gotta have silicone heating blankets. These are made by a company called HeatCon. They're right in Seattle, which is in my backyard, basically. So I'm only 45 minutes on a clear traffic day to HeatCon, or about 4 hours if traffic's really heavy for the day, or if it's flooding like right now. It takes a minute to get there with traffic. But basically, this is a silicone cover that has heating elements inside of it. There's a temperature probe right here that's flexible up to a certain point. You don't want to try to bend it on a 90. And then there's your power lead, and then there's your temperature probe lead. So this temperature probe goes in, and it goes to this right here in the middle, and this monitors the exterior temperature of the board, not the interior, the exterior temperature of the board. And then this is the actual power that heats the blanket. You get 2 of these and a control unit with 1 heat forming kit, which will do a 10-foot board. If you want to do a 20-foot board, then you have 2 of these. These are vital for the success of what I've done over the last 30 years in bending decking. I can't live without them. I exclusively use this brand. There's other stuff out on the internet. Take your chances with it if you're interested, but for me, HeatCon's where it's at. And this has definitely changed the game on how I design and how I build decks. People love curves. They love the design of the curve. So I'm gonna continue doing that and deliver that for my clients. So not only is it cool, it's good for your skill set, but it's also a good money maker because you're differentiating yourself from the competition. All right, guys, so there are 5 things that have revolutionized how I build decks. If you like this video, don't forget, click that subscribe button, hit the bell icon to be notified when we're putting out new content. Don't forget to buy a t-shirt. Links in the description below, and check out our new podcast, same spot, guys. Thanks for watching this video. Have a great day.